I mean, I just find it a little odd how I can watch the orgy scenes from Sense8 just head on, but can't watch... Hello, my name is Shantel from Shantel is Probably Sorry. The time the reaction starts is in the description. Yes, these are my work clothes. It's that time of year again. Now this is the I'm an idiot. Why did I write down 201 part 2? It's 202. Anyway, this is the second episode of the second season of the Bold Type called Rose-Colored Glasses, I think. I don't know, I saw the title once. Twice. So I'm probably correct. Did my mouse die or something? Cause like, hello? Even though this is the second half of the season premiere, it was a 2-hour premiere, this is considered the second episode of the season. I do have intro comments, but I really would like to keep them short. So, just in editing the last video, I don't know, I had concerns, you know? I started to think about possibilities for the characters this season, right? And so, first and foremost, I wish everyone job security. I don't want any of the girls to get fired. I was considering the fact, or, you know, thinking, what if they did a storyline where their friends were arguing, kind of, no, that's a Grey's Anatomy spoiler, never mind. But like actually fighting, like this could be the end of our friendship fighting. Because they've had fights before. That's a storyline I would not want to see, but I mean, if it happened, I guess I would go with it. Because like, what else am I gonna do? I am very curious to see what adventures await each character. I am curious to know how Sutton's life is gonna turn out in both her career and her relationship. And, you know, if she'll ever end up actually getting back together with Richard. I don't know, I wrote down Kadena work. I don't know if for whatever reason their work, Kat or Adina's work, or specifically Kat's work, would, I don't know, get in the way of their relationship somehow. I don't know what I was thinking, or maybe I did know what I was thinking when I wrote it down, but now I don't. Regardless, you know what I would hate though? I would hate... Don't ruin my ship, please. Please. It's not like they're gonna actually like hear me and do anything. I would appreciate it if no big fights happen between. I don't want that type of angst, okay? I'm okay with angst here and there. I don't like the type of angst where characters who should be really good friends or really close, generally speaking, either romantically or in friendship terms, are either fighting or arguing or broken up or in a weird place like that. That's the type of angst I don't really appreciate. I'd go with it though. I wrote down Cat Daddy because I don't know why, okay? I don't know why I wrote it down. I know why, but I don't, like, what was I gonna say about it? My friend sent me a post that she saw about how Cat is a daddy. So...
and believing that love will fall in place. My first subject is Emma.
I would like to say I have no problem with the 15-year age difference. I either just didn't know that it was a 15-year age difference, or I forgot that it was a 15-year age difference. I think I did know because I was talking about the fact that the actor who plays Richard does not look like he's that much older than her. So.
I'm at the Brooklyn location like we discussed. Brooklyn? I'm in Midtown.
Yeah, and I'm in Madison Square Park. Oh, and ladies, it's worth it.
Kat, first one there gets the details.
Oh my god, I can't believe you guys. And Jane, your shoes.
Oh, see, she doesn't care.
Yeah, the only thing I care about right now is you telling us what it was like to go down on Adina.
Go ahead.
Supportive ass friends.
Well,
wow.
It was awesome. I have one of these, and I know what I like. So, I did it, and I liked it a lot.
That's amazing.
And things with Adina are awesome.
God, I miss Richard sex.
Oh, babe, you just need a distraction.
I just want to like a guy again, you know?
Yeah. Oh, great. I have to go deal with this Emma Cox tape.
Cat's a daddy.
Actually, are you gonna walk with me like this?
Yeah, let's go. Off to work.
I feel like I do a lot of improv in this show. Like, I feel like they do.
Is that Susan and Marcus?
Yeah.
Oh.
I know you've never introduced anyone you were dating to your parents before.
Yes, I'm sure.
Not to mention a woman.
They know. They're cool. They want to meet the person I'm crazy about.
I'm going to die.
Okay. Then I better do my research.
Mm-hmm.
What the
Just keeps getting better and better.
Their careers are very impressive. Who are you?
What?
Their careers are very impressive. Have you even looked at this binder? It's a binder of professional men. It is a binder of hot men, and you get to fit them. Because men like me. What's Sorry Not Sorry Jane Slum? It's getting retweeted like crazy.
Hi Emma, this is Jane Slum from Incite. I just wanted to say how sorry I am. That's not the article I wrote. It was turned into a total hit piece.
Call Kat.
If you could give me a call when you get this, that would be great.
Now, everyone gets to plan it.
life comes at you fast.
Maybe I should just email her my original article and she'll take it down.
No, have you learned nothing from this experience?
I should at least email Victoria and tell these things have a 24-hour lifespan.
I just wanted to say how sorry I am.
Sorry, I am.
This is Jane Slum. I just wanted to say how sorry. This is Jane Slum. I just wanted to say how sorry.
Saying I look like a Muppet. And people say it so much, sometimes I start to believe it.
Sorry.
It's not funny.
Wow. I miss this show so much. I stan Friends.
It'll read something like, Kat Edison is Scarlet Magazine's first black female department head.
You know, I'm a department head. That has nothing to do with the color of my skin.
Okay. It's a big part of who you are.
Yeah, but I'm also part white. No one asked me to write that down.
Not the same thing, but okay.
Any other suggestions?
Yeah, Kat, you have this really cool opportunity to be a role model, but you're black on the inside too, Kat.
Oh, really? Are you questioning my blackness right now? Because up until very recently,
Yikes.
we were wearing khakis and cardigans, which is just about the whitest fashion statement imaginable.
That is an interesting projection of internalized racism.
Oh, cool. So now I'm a racist?
I didn't say that.
Ooh.
You didn't have to.
I feel like I need to rewatch that because a lot just happened.
Second.
Oh, no problem.
When in Scarlet, am I right?
If you're Sutton, then yes.
Where did you get all the good assignments?
I just wanted to say how sorry I am.
Oh, she's gonna get fired.
Blow out of your mouth. I know.
Cause I'm gonna have to rewatch that whole Alex and Kat scene. Can I just say that Kat got really defensive really quickly? Just saying. Let's press play now.
That's another one of the things I love about you. Coming.
I love it. Wow. Okay.
Hey. It's so good to see you. Oh, it's so good to meet you, Adina. Such a pleasure.
The last one of your honorable men is a pirate.
Oh
I
my.
missed measurements down wrong. I just realized I forgot something.
I mean, I went to him for a simple suggestion, and then he...
Did you know that women can have 6 different kinds?
Yes.
It's not important.
Okay.
I did. Yeah.
So, let me guess. Another old white guy.
You know what I said earlier about your bio? It's up to you.
Yeah.
That's just how I do things. Doesn't make my way or Alex's way any better or worse than yours.
I was actually going to talk about that at the end. I like that is in there about the fact that everyone handles their own labels. What was that face? Handles their own labels differently, and one way isn't inherently wrong or one way isn't inherently right. We can be different and handle ourselves differently and express ourselves differently, and it not be an actual issue. So I'm glad that that side of the conversation existed in here. Like, I literally wrote down label. Y'all can't see that. I'm not putting it up to the screen. I wrote down labels to talk about at the end. So.
But when I brought up adding black to your bio, a wall goes up.
Yeah, you're right. Select your race. Caucasian or African American. You don't have any other choice. And thinking, like, how do I pick? I mean, because if I pick black, then I'm rejecting my mom. And if I pick white, then I'm rejecting my dad.
So what did you pick?
Other?
Well, actually, I just left it blank. It was easier to deny both than to pick one.
But you're not a kid anymore.
I like that. I like the... I gotta pause it now because I'm an idiot. Oh God, Jane is... Wow. Jesus. Okay. Is there another ant on my camera? I suppose I'll talk about that later. That's the thing I love about this show. This show's always doing stuff like that. And always bringing up social topics, or... That's the easiest word to use, social topics. But the introspection there and being able to identify why she, and by she I mean Kat, why she has the type of relationship with herself and her race, so to speak, important. I think it's important that at least the character knows and is able to vocalize that, because that in turn is, well, I mean, it's information for the audience as well. And what it just boils down to is being representation. It's representation is what that is. You know, I don't think, maybe this is just me having a shite memory, but I don't think I've ever seen a show with a biracial character who explain themselves like that. I don't think I've ever seen that. Ever.
I allowed myself to get too personally invested in Emma.
Setting the record straight, that's Jane Sloan. We'll be
She's
right
not
back
gonna.
to meet New York's
I'm
youngest
sorry, if I
kid.
could just say,
Predictable. She is.
I do think that Emma Cox is making great strides for women.
So, Incite was factually inaccurate.
Somebody getting
I think that we're all
fired.
so quick to take each other down, just like Emma Cox is not all good or all bad. And when we sensationalize people for the purpose of getting more eyes on the story, that story gets lost. I started to second guess how I carry myself and how I use my sexuality.
Sutton, you are a people person. And men are people. It's that simple.
Did you lose a bet?
I don't gamble.
Really?
But if you must know, I have a list of things that make me uncomfortable.
A list. So what, like a reverse bucket list?
I love Sutton being herself.
Photograph is one of them.
Okay. Alive and uncomfortable? That sounds terrible.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes! That is so weird. I'm just kidding.
Thanks for
Sutton being
doing
herself is the best Sutton.
Everything okay?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I know everything about Grandma and Grandpa, but I don't know anything about Dad's side of the family. So why is that?
You're confident. You're successful.
Everything you guys are saying kind of just feels like a way to avoid really talking about it, and I'm trying to understand why.
Maybe it's my fault. When you were little, I would take you to the park. People assumed you weren't biologically mine.
Yeah.
Maybe I avoided labels because I just wanted to be your mom. I didn't want to be your white mom. Should we get drinks? You read my mind. There's just one thing I have to do first. Okay.
Tell her off, tell her off, tell her off, tell her off, tell her off. Punch her in the face.
Hey, Mitzi. So the slut-shaming thing you're doing, it's gotta stop.
I wasn't.
You were. Is that on your list?
Okay, well, like, Wow, tongue twister. I meant to say potential love interest.
Thank you for the awkward introduction.
It's nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
Oh,
Thank you.
it makes sense.
Especially when you've been raised with rose-colored glasses.
Your parents, they did what they believed was best for you at the time.
But I also know that I chose to keep those glasses on long after I moved out.
It's okay.
I am Scarlet Magazine's first black female department head.
Sounds impressive.
And I'm so proud to be biracial, but right now it feels important to embrace this part of myself.
I made a mistake recently when I thought you would be a good fit for Incite. Jane, stop. You're fired.
I'll be back. While I was gone eating dinner, I spilled tomato soup on my work shirt like a dum-dum. So I just grabbed the nearest shirt I could find, which is this. It's a bit dressy, but it's this. I wore this to Pride. I went to Pride for the first time, which was cool. It was actually a really fun experience. Maybe I'll talk about it. Who knows? I did get something from Pride though. I got this. I almost knocked something over too. I got this from Pride. I also got a hangover, but that's another story. Okay, so that was the Bold Type 202 called Rose Colored Glasses, with rose colored glasses being a reference to Kat's identity with herself, or identity with relationship, her relationship with her racial identity. Which I enjoyed this episode for one. I enjoy this show for all. I feel as though it is not often, or at least I do not personally often come across shows that explore the complexities of self-identity or the relationship with oneself when you are biracial, because there are so many things that could come out of that, but I'll talk about that later. Well, Jane got fired, which apparently we all knew was going to happen. But before she got fired, there was a conversation at the beginning between Jane and Victoria where Jane said something along the lines of, I thought you hired me for my voice. And we see yet again that she still has not been able to really find a platform where she can express herself the way she wants and feel as though her voice matters. That was a big issue for her last season. That's the whole reason she left Scarlet in the first place. I think it's funny that I was talking about job security and then Jane lost hers, but I knew she was gonna lose hers, so. And I don't know why. I do my best to avoid spoilers, but sometimes I can't help it, so I think I saw that somewhere. I wrote down labels to talk about, but I already kind of discussed it in the video, where everyone has their own identity with their labels or lack of labels. Everyone feels differently about them, and the way one person may declare their labels, I should say, might be different than another person would want to declare their labels. And I said that no one is inherently wrong or right for doing so, and I stand by that, but I do think I should expound. There can be circumstances in which the whole label thing, either denying it or not expressing it, can be unhealthy, or it can make it so that you don't completely understand yourself, or you have a very dissonant relationship with yourself because you are denying a large part of who you are, or at least a part that should be important because you think that it can just be passed off. And of course not you personally, you as in second person, right? And not everyone has finished their process. Some people are still in the process of discovering who they are, or to find a word that kind of fits, to describe. Not everyone is finished with that process. Not everyone has completed that. Some people may be in different stages of self-discovery. We see that Kat is apparently in the whole self-discovery stage regarding her race. So I guess I do think there are some circumstances in which not accepting a label or not accepting a label itself is not the same thing as denying a part of yourself. I think that there's a difference between the two things, and denying a part of yourself is what can be unhealthy. I wrote down that Sutton was scattered, and this was of course before she spoke with Jacqueline and could appreciate Jacqueline. Speaking of Jacqueline, I'll go back to Sutton. There was a whole thing of Jacqueline being offered a seat on the board. And I don't know, just the way it was in that final scene where we saw her just putting her stuff on her desk and the way the camera lingered on her, it made it feel as though there was going to be more to the story and that we are going to see more of that storyline this season. It seemed as though. And Jacqueline is just such a lovely mama bear. Yeah, but Sutton was really scattered because of the rumors and because of how she was caring about how other people perceived her, which I think is interesting going along with the subject matter of this episode. Not that there was a lot of self-discovery in this episode for all three of them, but there kind of was. I mean, they all developed as characters. Kat has moved forward in her racial identity. Sutton has moved forward in her own personal identity in being a people's person and not allowing other people to judge her for that. I love men and men love me, she says. And that's cool. It's not a big deal. And Jane's, I think, was a little more subtle, but she did end up doing what I thought she was going to do, which was speaking up for Emma Cox or putting her own voice into the conversation. She got fired for it, but it was the right thing to do. And so now I just hope that Jane can find it back to a place, or find it back to Scarlet, but also have it be in a way where she feels okay and feels as though it's the proper platform for her, especially since she loves Scarlet. I mean, she was a young girl in, what was it? Some state, reading Scarlet in her closet. Okay, and the only thing left to talk about that I wrote down was ownership of race. And I wrote that down along the part of the conversation, or part of the episode I should say, where Kat sat her parents down. This was after the dinner with Adina the next morning. And she asked, wait, which part was this at? Sutton is happy, tell her off. Where she was talking to both of her parents about, well, about all that stuff. Because they talked about some stuff in there. They talked about important stuff. If you've watched my season 1 videos for the bold type, a few of the things I'm about to say may sound familiar, possibly. I know that I've mentioned in my videos for the bold type that I am biracial. I've mentioned it like 3 times on my channel. And there are details about myself and my channel, obviously, that I have to keep bringing up because of the fact that I get new people coming in here and watching my videos. But it may seem redundant for the people who have already been here. To the people who have already been here, it must sound like logic. That's a bad joke. That's a bad joke. He said he doesn't even talk about, or someone else said he doesn't even talk about his race that much. Just got blown out of proportion. And the second thing that may sound familiar is a conversation I had on an ally's voice in the conversation versus the person's voice who the conversation is about. Meaning that this is actually a topic in which I feel as though my voice is important, because I will often talk about things or subject as an ally. And it is, again, I've said this already, my firm belief that whoever or whatever type of person the conversation is about, that is the person whose voice should weigh the heaviest, as opposed to someone who's an ally or something. So maybe me speaking on the subject of Islam, my voice on a specific topic, let's just say for no specific reason, the hijab. I'm obviously not talking about that now, but let's say that I wanted to speak about that part of the Islamic practice. My voice would not matter as much in that situation as a Muslim woman's in the same situation. And I mean, her voice should be the one that weighs the most and the one that people pay attention to. And often we'll find that it's the other way around, where people listen to the allies before they listen to the people who are actually in the situation, which I think is a different conversation. So this is something I'm going to talk about, and when I'm talking about it, I'll feel valid in what I'm saying. I don't know. The thing that we see with people who cannot be defined specifically, who don't look to be one specific thing or act as though they are one specific thing, those people will often have to come up with an identity for themselves, or might have to go through more self-discovery than a person who fits into a box, whether or not they like being in that box, who fits into the box and has all of the rules laid out for them. And again, this is not as though they enjoy those rules necessarily, or stipulations that are addressed to whoever they may be or whatever characteristic may make them fit into that box. Take someone who is, I don't know, half black and half white. There's so many types of identities that can come from that combination. And I mean, just not even just black and white. Any biracial combination. You might see some people who, like Kat, grew up not really ever getting into it, never either finding a reason to get into it or specifically not wanting to get into it. You have some who are raised by one parent, which may obscure the identity or may make that individual lead more towards one side of their heritage than the other. It may not as well. It can also depend on the area a person grows up in and the type of schools a person goes to, because who we are as people is made up of both our genetics and our environment. That applies to practically anything. And I'm sure I'm leaving some things out, but those are all things that can contribute to a person's self-identification, a biracial person's specifically. It is sometimes common to, not sometimes, I feel as though it is too common an occurrence to see biracial people with superiority complexes, or who feel as though they are more pretty. It's interesting that I do that. Even when I talk about groups that I am a part of, I will always say they. I will always separate myself from the equation, or most of the times I will separate myself from the equation, and I don't know why. I think it's because I'm trying to discuss it as objectively as I can. I don't know, but because society tells them both historically and now that lighter skin is better and looser curls are better, some biracial people actually feed into that or believe that. I'm not one of those people. It's not uncommon to see someone who's biracial relate to one side of their heritage heavily and not the other at all. It is also a pretty common occurrence to see someone who is biracial side with the side that gives them the most privilege, because who wants to subject themselves purposely to worse circumstances when there is the option of better circumstances? This is kind of an antiquated example, but not really. The only difference between then and now is segregation, but people who are biracial and white passing who just say they're white and pretend they're white regardless of their own self-identity, but in order to fit into a world where they are passing and they are more privileged. But the segregation example is more of an antique thing, but it still happens. So people who are white passing who either don't care enough to correct people or who enjoy being white passing. I think it can also be pretty hard if, for example, let's say a person is biracial and they are white passing, for them to form their own self-identity that is comprised of both of the races who made them who they are, because the world perceives you as one color. And I think that's it right there. People's perceptions of you can also play a role in the identity that you form for yourself. All this to say that there are so many possibilities when it comes to the self-identification of a biracial individual. With Kat, we see a biracial individual who's never actually developed that self-identity because she feared what that would mean for her. Myself, I developed my identity a long time ago. But you know what's interesting, actually? I never said anything about it, but last season I saw a post after the episode, what was it, 104 possibly? The episode where Kat punches the guy who is harassing Adina, and then she gets arrested. I saw a post where someone was saying that they couldn't suspend their disbelief. They found it hard to believe that a woman of color, especially a black biracial woman of color, would be so brazen with the police officers, and I found that to be an interesting point. And my stance on that is, on the one hand, not every person of color or black person that you meet is going to be distrustful of police officers. However, many of them still know that there's you can't be reckless. You can't be reckless. You have to be extra, extra, extra careful. And I think that's what their point was, the person who created the post. And I find that interesting, whether intentional or not, that this is what Kat's identity is. And that interaction with the police officers was the way it was. So these are my parents when they got married, which was about 5 years before they had me. And then they were divorced before I turned 2, which to me is always like, what was the point of that? You could have just waited like 1 more year and just not have done it at all. Just kidding. That's very self-loathing. I probably shouldn't say stuff like that. I don't want y'all to get concerned about me. My mom is a black West Indian woman, or a black Jamaican woman. My father is a white, half German, half English man who is American. Yes. The first 8 years of my life or so, I lived in an environment that was predominantly white. And when I went to elementary schools, I would literally be one of maybe 5 people of color kids in the entire school. I mean, it makes me feel really out of place, which is probably why I developed my identity so young. Which, speaking of identities, I've also mentioned this on my channel before, how my father's mom, I love you, Grandma, when they were married, expressed her concerns about them having a child. My father said that basically the gist of it was her trying to discourage them from having, well, me, you know, from having a biracial child. Obviously, I wasn't born. I only know what came out of the mouth of my parents, and my mom tells a bit of a different story than my dad. My dad, in his whiteness, is, you know, like, oh, it was just not that he minimalized it, but it was out of ignorance and concern for what my experiences would be, and of course, my mom interpreted it differently. And I can't really speak on it too much because, again, I wasn't even born. My father says it was more along the lines of her being concerned for what the child's identity would be, or how they would grow up in the world, or how the world would treat them, which is another conversation about not fitting in a box, and how the people who do fit into these nifty little labels interact with the people who don't, with the people who are in the middle of the spectrum. You have this end of the spectrum, you have this end of the spectrum, and then you have everyone who fits in the middle. And usually you will see with people who fit in the middle, and this spectrum can be applied to multiple characteristics, just like I mentioned in the last video. Just insert whichever characteristic you want to. The people who fit into the nice little clean sections might not always be the best to the people who don't. It might not always interact in the best ways with the people who don't. And if you don't fit on either side, it is very easy to feel out of place and to feel like you don't belong anywhere. I think part of the reason I developed my own identity so young was because of the extremes in my life. Living in an area where I don't see any people of color at all. Barely. Which actually made my mom overcompensate, which made her specifically, both because she missed her own culture of Jamaica and because she thought it was important for me, she went out of her way to make sure that I interacted with other children of color and that her friends were people of color. She had a lot of African friends, like direct from Africa immigrant friends. Then I moved to an area where a few years of that, like 4 years of that, I lived in an area that was actually very culturally diverse. And even though I was only like 9, I was able to tell, wow, there are so many different types of people here and so many people from different cultures here. And this is just really great. It feels so good. And I remember thinking that as a small child because of how I grew up. And so for 4 years, I lived in a very kind of diverse environment. And then when I started going to high school, my 4 years of high school, I went to a school where it was the complete opposite of my elementary school. Everybody in the school was black or biracial, except for maybe 20 people, 30 tops. And we're talking about a school with a few thousand students. So I personally feel as though I have a pretty good view of both sides and both environments. And when I speak on these subjects, it's from that type of knowledge. Or when I speak on subjects of race, it is from that type of knowledge. And when I speak on subjects of race, it is from the perspective of someone who is biracial and who has seen it both and has seen it all. It is literally a huge part of who I am. I'm just chilling here in the middle. And I feel like a lot of us, and I'm not just talking about biracial people anymore, a lot of people just fit in the middle. I actually could have more stuff to say. I do have more stuff to say, but I shouldn't say it because this video has been going for a long time, but it does have more to do with identity issues involving, I guess, biracial people, but I guess maybe it'll be saved for another day. But I did actually really appreciate that subject being brought up, and I really appreciated the development in Kat and seeing her reasonings for everything and for her own self-identification and seeing all of that. Alright though, I guess that's it for me. Thank you for watching. Like the video if you liked it. Share if you know anyone who might want to see this. You can check out my channel, my playlist, or my description to see what other shows I watch, what else I do. Subscribe if any of those things interest you. And I guess that brings me to bye. There's an ant on my monitor. I knew there was an ant on my monitor. Wow. Jesus. Okay. Is there another ant on my camera?
Not your girlfriend.
Household appliances that will charge up your sex life. Electric toothbrush. What, nobody else?
And water.
People still use those? No, the homeless woman is going to benefit from her purchase.
3 of our clients wound up in the hospital with infections. Jane, in about...
I don't like being hatless. And then they were divorced before I turned 2, which to me is always like, what was the point of that? Dude, so her nails match her shirt. Ah! That did not go in the trash can. Maybe I should take my trash can off of a counter and put it on the ground because I keep missing. And so I think that's what their point was, the person who created the point. The point. And I think that's what they...
Kind of.
The glasses, though. Did my mouse die or something? Because, like, hello? You have this end of the spectrum. You have this end of the spectrum. You have this end of the spectrum. Alright. Don't worry, don't. Why do I keep using my mouth? And by mouth, I mean mouse. You have this end of these. You have... if it's appropriate, I'll put it up. I probably won't put it up, though. My mouse died again. You have this end of the spectrum. You have this end of the... Mother.
Which would...
30-second interactive commercial. Let's go. Let's press play now. Oh, my ad. Oh. I'm interacting with the ad, okay? God. Even though this... Blah. I wrote down that... Blah. Even though this is... Even though this is... I might end up taking this hat off. Cause it's dirty. You can check out my channel, my playlist, or my description to see what other shows I watch, what else I do. Subscribe if any of those things interest you. And I guess that brings me to bye. I didn't even know that was... I have bars. I have bars. Bitch, bars. Ugh.